Gouges located in high traffic areas are best served by filling them with a filler that dries very hard and will take a lot of wear and tear. An epoxy putty stick is just such a filler. When it's cured, it's as hard or harder than the wood being repaired. Just like fine wood furniture, hardwood floors are susceptible to accidental damage. For example, a worker might drop a tool during the installation process, creating a dent or a gouge. To complete this repair, we're going to use a leveler card, tap water, catalyzed lacquer in an aerosol, vinyl sealer, the epoxy putty stick we already mentioned, and a brush tip marker. Start by cutting off a piece of the epoxy stick about the size of what you'll need to fill the hole. We're cutting off a larger piece than we would need for the sake of allowing a better view on the video. Make sure to remove the protective wrapper after cutting off the piece. You may choose to remove the wrapper before cutting off the piece if you wish. Use your fingers to knead the piece you cut off. If you have a reaction to epoxy, be sure to use disposable gloves while handling it. Keep kneading until the color is no longer marbleized, but rather a solid color. Force the epoxy into the damaged area. Sprinkle some water over the area. The epoxy will not stick to water, so the water will serve as a release agent for the epoxy when we remove the excess from the flooring. Use the leveler card to pull the epoxy into the water on the surface. Use the card concurrently to push the epoxy into the gouge. Make sure that the gouge is completely filled, and make sure that the surface is level over the damage. You are much better off making sure the fill is level now than having to do a lot of sanding later. Excessive sanding brings the risk of wearing through the color, causing you a lot of extra work. We're sanding very lightly with P1000A waterproof sandpaper. The goal is only to take off any nibs that we might have missed. We do not want to take off any color or significantly change the sheen of the surrounding wood. If the fill was rough and higher than the surface, we would have to use a lower grit of sandpaper to wear away the excess epoxy and a sanding block to keep our sanding level. We would have then likely broken through the surrounding color. As stated, we have taken steps to avoid that problem. 3 types of sandpaper come in the kit. We used the one shown on the far right of the screen. Choose an appropriately colored brush tip marker to color the epoxy. It is likely that a color that contains the word tone will be best for the light background color. You will likely need one of the other colors to draw grain lines. Apply color to the epoxy with the marker. Notice that rubbing the colors in lines as you apply them helps to spread the color to blend more naturally with the wood and to reduce the intensity of the color if needed. Try to get the background color applied before drawing the grain. Always shake aerosols for 1 minute after the mixing balls rattle. We didn't take the time on this video, but the can was shaken off camera. Spray a light coat of vinyl sealer over the damaged area. A few light coats are better than a heavy coat. Allow the sealer to dry for about 1/2 hour. If it feels rough, sand it lightly with silicon carbide P400A sandpaper. Spray a light wet coat of pre-catalyzed lacquer of the proper sheen. Again, a few light even coats are better than a very wet coat. If you are not sure of which sheen to use, test the various sheens in an inconspicuous place. Use the one that best matches your floor. If your spot feels rough after drying, spray a light wet coat of No Blush Blender Flat over the area to level it. This application is not necessary if the repair feels smooth. Epoxy putty sticks can be used on hardwood floors, laminate floors, and oiled floors.